This video is for the single Pringles, and today we're going to be covering what to do in your waiting season / how to trust God. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're not, hey. I'm Kayla and I make videos about faith and lifestyle. Let's be honest, when you're in a waiting season, it can feel a little helpless. Like there's nothing you can do but wait and hope that one day Prince Charming comes riding around the corner. But fortunately, there are a few things we can do while we wait, and today we're going to cover 5. So the first thing we can do while we wait is get closer to God. Before we get into a relationship, we have to understand that God is our foundation. Getting closer to God allows us to recognize His voice and discern His will. Knowing God helps us know ourselves and helps us to find our identity in Him. Getting closer to the Lord also helps us to trust Him. And trusting God is really important when it comes to being in a single season. Knowing that He sees the desires of our hearts and that He has a plan should give us consolation. Getting closer to the Lord also means getting better at recognizing His characteristics. We want men of God, right? Is that the consensus? How are we going to be able to recognize a man of God when we don't even know God? We can't. That's the bottom line. Finally, getting closer to God helps us to be content in Him. Being content in God doesn't necessarily mean we don't want a relationship. It just means that God is all we need to feel fulfilled. The second thing we can do while we are in our waiting season is pursue personal growth. Use this time to start or continue growing into the best version of yourself. Personal growth isn't something that happens overnight. It's a lifelong process, and that process starts with self-reflection. Ask yourself what areas you need to / want to grow in. Maybe there's some habits you need to break, or perhaps there's some habits you need to implement in order to reach your goals. Take care of your body. If you can, eat healthy, drink water, and continue learning. Maybe learn to play an instrument or learn a new language. Read a book you've been interested in. You can also use this time to practice self-discipline and self-care to help us grow into well-rounded individuals. I just want to make it clear that you don't need to be the perfect person before you get into a relationship. This is something I've had to tell myself, and I'm still telling myself, because sometimes you can feel like, oh, I don't want to go into a relationship with bad habits. I mean, that's not a bad thing to say, but I don't want to go into a relationship and not know how to do certain things, not be perfect at this or that. We don't need to be perfect. We just have to prepare ourselves to be able to bring 100% into a relationship. Okay, so the third thing we can do while we wait is get clear on our values. Our values, which are ideally shaped by the Word, are our guiding compass. They control how we interact with the world around us, and they will help us make informed decisions when it comes to choosing a partner. Now, when it comes to values, please, please, please do not compromise. They may be cute, but are they patient? Are they kind? Are they after God's heart? On a personal note, when I was younger, I'd have the occasional crush, like the typical middle schooler, high schooler, whatever. But looking back, none of them had a relationship with God. And I used to be so insecure and ask myself, why does no one ever like me back? Or when they did seem to like me, they never did anything, ask me out. And this really took a toll on my self-esteem. But now looking back and having spent time growing closer to God, getting clear on my values, pursuing personal growth, I could see that this was just God protecting me. Not only was I probably too young to be dating anyway, but I wasn't yet spiritually or emotionally mature. I wasn't living out the values that God knew I would one day cherish. So I implore you, please, please, please do not compromise your values. I saw this video where this girl was sharing her testimony of how she and her husband met, and it was so interesting because she mentioned how when she was in her waiting season, she had this dream, and in that dream, she and God were in a furniture store looking around, right? Don't know if I'm going to be saying this properly, if I'm saying this exactly how it happened, but I remember the overall gist. So she and God were in a furniture store looking around, shopping around, and God tells her, you can choose whatever you want. Now she looks at God and she's like, okay, but I don't want to make the decision without you. So God's like, okay, I know what is perfect for you. I have the perfect thing in mind for you. But it's going to be custom made, so it's going to take a little longer. Is that okay with you? And she was like, okay. And so I really liked her testimony, because the lesson here is that we have to ask ourselves, do we want to compromise and settle for anyone that comes our way? Or do we want exactly what and who God wants for us? Now, I'm sure most of us would say we want what God wants for us, right? But we have to be okay with the fact that it may take a little bit longer. We have to be patient and not compromise. We have to let God cook. And the last part about this is we have to live out our values. We can't hold others to values and standards we ourselves don't live up to. This reminds me of Matthew chapter 7 verses 3-5, in which Jesus says, "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?" So basically he's saying, get yourself together. Actively try to get yourself together before you try to point out what other people aren't doing or are doing. Okay, so we have to live out our values. The fourth thing we can do while we wait is be active in our church and our community. Serve in your community, in your church, or get involved in activities. This will not only allow you to positively affect and help other people, but you will also be able to meet like-minded individuals, people who may have the same values, the same worldviews. I sometimes see these little TikTok skits by Christian creators where they're asking God to bring them someone, but God is like, okay, but you have to go outside, and they don't want to. You have to realize that finding someone is not like Amazon. You can't go online, order, and expect someone to show up on your doorstep. We have to actually surround ourselves with like-minded people after God's own heart. Okay, and the last thing, number 5, is we have to cultivate meaningful friendships. Take this time to get closer to your family and your friends. These are the people that are going to be there for you to give you advice, support, guidance, and all of that. I feel like right now there is a loneliness epidemic, especially because of social media, which is funny, you would think, because social media is designed to keep us connected. But I feel like we're so connected to the point where we're disconnected in real life, if that makes sense. Because of this loneliness, if we don't cultivate those platonic friendships now, we can possibly go into a relationship expecting that person to be our everything, expecting to be with that person 24/7, and end up having an unhealthy dynamic. So take the time to develop those friendships with people you are not interested in. We're talking about platonic friendships here. Alright, so to recap, we talked about 5 things we can do during our single season. The first is get closer to God. Second, pursue personal growth. 3, get clear on your values. 4, be active in your church and your community. And number 5, cultivate meaningful friendships. Does that sound good? Slay. Okay guys, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Let me know if you resonated with anything I said in this video, if there are things that you need to work on, things that stood out to you. I love talking to you guys in the comments. Also, in the comments, let me know what video topics y'all would like to see next. Hope you guys have a great day. Stay blessed, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.